topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Well, hello and welcome. Bill Martinez here. Good to have you with us. And well, I tell you, we got a great show planned for you. Dr. Robert Malone. He is the inventor of mRNA, right? Which we heard, and heard so much about, and learned about. We didn't know about it before COVID-19, but he is the inventor. In fact, he made a comment here recently that it looks like there are, I guess, I don't know, I'm using my words, unexpected complications involved with the process. This seems to come out, he said it's proving that the vaccine is more deadly than the genetically engineered virus himself. This comes from Dr. Robert Malone himself. Anyway, we're looking forward to talking to him, getting into more detail about it, also about the confirmation of RFK Jr. Will America, will he be able to make America healthy again, in spite of all the pushback and the resistance that he's been attacked by? Also, and this is breaking, last week was reported here on the show about a Yale study investigation that talks about post-vaccination syndrome that's being linked to COVID-19 vaccines. Are you ready for this? It's a recent study by Yale University researchers, okay, not a bunch of wannabes in some back room somewhere. They've identified a rare condition that they're terming post-vaccination syndrome, or PVS, in a subset of individuals following COVID-19 vaccination. Now, this condition manifests with chronic symptoms such as brain fog, dizziness, tinnitus, exercise intolerance. Now, the study provides initial insights into the biological changes associated with PVS, including alterations in immune cells in the presence of coronavirus proteins long after vaccination. As I mentioned, this was reported last week on our show by John Fleetwood from johnfleetwood.com. And the interesting things, remember when we were told about the vaccination was supposed to stay in one spot, right? Well, of course, they're realizing that's not necessarily the case. It was also supposed to be vacated out of the body system within a relatively short amount of time. Well, this study is saying that actually the vaccine stays in the body 709 days. 709 days. Is that incredible? I'm telling you, it's no wonder that people have lost confidence in our government, in the health system, and also why they were pushing the Trump administration to get Bobby Kennedy Jr. in place to do something about our health system. And of course, you saw the pushback coming from the left. And you wonder, you go, how do you defend the indefensible? I mean, that just seems to be the theme time and time again. Everything that the administration is doing is, as Donald Trump said in the final days of his campaign, it's common sense. And I believe this is where America is at. This is the age of common sense that we've entered into. And anyway, I'm excited, as I mentioned to you, to be talking with Dr. Robert Malone, who is here with us now. So we're going to bring him on the show. Dr. Robert Malone joins us now.
Hi, Bill. How you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great, Dr. Malone. Good to see you again. Thank you so much for making the time. Excited to talk to you about RFK Jr., also reports on this latest Yale study that I'm sure you're up on as well. But first of all, first things first, let's talk about RFK making America healthy again.
Yeah, I'm just back from CPAC, and Yanya Kellick and I had a session talking about MAHA. Unfortunately, Bobby couldn't be there. He's still really overwhelmed, I think. Maybe that's too strong a word. by the tyranny of the urgent. He is
Right.
in the mix right now, dealing with all the fires that are burning in
Right.
HHS.
Well,
And
I thought maybe you were going to tell me that he was delayed because he was busy filling out the 5 things he did last week for Doge.
yeah, yeah. Probably he's Doge exempt, I suspect.
Well, but I suspect it's more than 5 things that he did, even in the first day.
Yes.
You have to
If he was going to list 5 things, it's probably a problem of figuring out what the top 5 are.
Right.
So is Bobby going to succeed? I don't know. You don't know. What is success? Trump has defined success for the Bobby Kennedy and the Maha Commission, which he's established in executive order, as measurable improvements in the health of U.S. citizens within 12 to 18 months. He's also defined in that executive order what the primary focus is going to be. It's definitely chronic diseases, and it is more specifically chronic diseases in particular of children. Mm-hmm. So the focus is on children, which is consistent with Children's Health Defense, Bobby's the group that he formerly served as chairman of the board on, mm-hmm. and is often associated with, even though some of his greatest successes were with waterkeepers. And even before that, against Monsanto with his law practice. But the focus is going to be on children's health, and hence you've seen the announcements about rebuilding, reforming, or replacing VAERS, mm-hmm. And the announcements shutting down a lot of the CDC communication and the stopping of the ACIP, the now I'm suddenly blanking on the acronym, Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices.
Right.
And with that, when an ACIP meeting is canceled, a bell rings. No, when an angel ascends to heaven. When the ACIP meeting gets canceled, yes. Usually that means that some vaccine product that pharma is lobbying for is held in abeyance.
Are we going to end up, just as a sidebar? I mean, Donald Trump seems to be picking czars, whether it's the border. We've got a pardoning czar now. Is there going to be a vaccination czar?
I haven't heard that. You'll recall that Bobby was offered the czar position to avoid congressional
confirmation. Yeah,
confirmation process for USDA, FDA, CDC, and NIH. So that offer took Medicare, Medicaid off the table, mm-hmm. And apparently Bobby insisted that he would rather prefer to go through the confirmation process, barrel and over the waterfall, and right. Take his risks in order to have that broadened set of roles and responsibilities. So, is he going to succeed? It's all in the details. It's all in the second, third, and fourth tier appointments. Mm-hmm. And some of those have been rushed in while he was distracted by the confirmation process. Jerry Parker being a notable example. Jerry Parker being a former associate dean, I guess former, because we only have the CBS report. Sorry, I'm being challenged here. The CBS report that Jerry Parker has been appointed to the job of the White House Office of Pandemic Planning. Mm-hmm. Jerry Parker is the at Texas A&M. He was serving. He's a DVM PhD and was serving as Associate Dean of One Health. So he's very much behind One Health. And by the way, he is another one of these vaccine advocates that Peter Hotez has done repeated podcasts with. Right. And Peter Hotez wrote the foreword for Jerry Parker's new book. So he's wrote his new book, right. The foreword to it. So he's very much in that. One Health initiative is a big part of Agenda 2030. It's a very much globalist initiative,
Say, yes.
supported by a World Health Organization and the United Nations, and it defines that human health is on par in priority with environmental health and animal health. As one person posted on my Substack the other day, or on Twitter. So I would rather sacrifice a lab rat and have my grandmother have a better standard of living than to preserve the lab rat.
Right.
And that kind of, it's a little snarky, but it captures the essence of the objections to the One Health Initiative, which is absolutely aligned with in terms of the environmental impact part. It's explicitly aligned with the climate change initiative or green energy initiative. It's another part of this whole globalist network, and Jerry Parker is in on it. And Jerry Parker kind of got snuck in to that office in the White House without Bobby having any knowledge of it. How do I know that Bobby didn't know? Because when I told him about it, he didn't know about it.
Well, plus it's just so out of whack. It's an oxymoron. I mean, it's even against Donald Trump's, agenda. There's a glaring conflict there. We're talking with Dr. Robert Malone. He's the author of PsyWar. I didn't get a chance to tell you about that. And we're going to talk more about his new book, PsyWar, Enforcing the New World Order, which I think is appropriate in light of what we're talking right now.
Yeah, I feel I'm not only have I now been vindicated by Joe Rogan, but thank you, Joe, for that clip.
Yes.
But also by the USAID Doge disclosures, which have pretty much validated most of the thesis of the book, PsyWar.
Yes. Well, Dr. Malone, I mean, this executive order that Donald Trump signed with RFK and Maha, I mean, 18 months, that's moving fast. If you're in Robert's shoes, RFK Jr.'s shoes, what's the low-hanging fruit that he can get to right away to demonstrate that he's serious and that he can begin to get the job done? Because as we know in government, even a 4-year term of what Donald Trump's trying to do, I mean, I'm glad he's moving as fast as he is, but it's getting the rest of the government to move along. I made mention that people were whining because, Doge says, hey, tell me the 5 things that you did last week on behalf of the government. And they went into the fetal position and their thumb was in their mouth and they're whining about it. And you're going, wait a minute. What?
The mouth is one orifice that the thumb was inserted into.
Wait, you're a doctor, so you can get into those other orifices, but I didn't want to quite go there.
Only for prostate exams.
Yes, exactly.
So,
the low-hanging fruit.
Getting back to it, what can Bobby do to meet the president's mandate? One thing that is quite notable is that the number of fentanyl deaths on a daily basis probably substantially exceeds 300. Okay. So there are a number of steps that can be done to change the arc of the fentanyl crisis. And there's a number of facts that people don't understand about fentanyl. Of course, it's being imported by the Chinese. It's an aggressive action. It's an intentional aggressive action. It is, basically powdered murder.
Right. Exactly.
And Donald Trump, to his credit, has taken this policy of, well, number one, he called the premier of China and complained about it. But he put a embargo on small packages, which is how they slip the fentanyl in.
Okay.
Fentanyl is so powerful that the amount of fentanyl necessary to cover the date on a penny will kill you.
Wow.
Okay.
Think about that. Wow, that's crazy.
Here's another fun fact for you, Bill. You probably have a mental image that the people that are dying from fentanyl are desperate opioid abuser druggies, right?
Well, I've seen a lot of it. No, I understand. Some people might
think
that.
That's not who is dying mostly. The people that are mostly dying are unintentional, unknowing poisonings. How does this happen? They basically, I did a cut the other day with Laura Logan that will air soon. in which we dove into this. Laura is a bona fide expert on fentanyl from a journalist standpoint. And so she asserts that none of the street drugs, the pill street drugs that are available, are what they are advertised as. Even methamphetamine is basically fentanyl laced with other things. Fentanyl is like the do-all drug for the dealer, and has the advantage of being so potent with so little. So they can put a bunch of baby powder together, put in a tablet press, and add a little bit of fentanyl and call it methamphetamine. It is used, among other things, to enhance the potency of marijuana. So these, and I'm also told, I haven't confirmed this, that fentanyl is legal in the state of Colorado in small amounts.
Wow.
So what they do is they dust it onto the marijuana that they're selling. And, this can be in legal shops also. It can be in the gummies. So some poor soul goes in to buy his weed bag from the local, state chartered dope dealer. And he gets this bag that's been dusted with fentanyl, and he gets a fentanyl dose. And, if somebody screws up and put too much in there, he's dead. And that's that, that and the teen that has just scored whatever the pill is that he thinks he's bought, and then he gets a dose of fentanyl, or he takes 2 pills instead of 1, whatever the thing is. These are mostly unintentional poisonings.
Yeah.
And,
well, you're hearing stories, Dr. Malone, of college students, wanting to, they're doing an all-nighter because there's a term paper or whatever that they're doing.
That's the meth. Yep.
Right. And so then here it is, they OD, and you're hearing these stories time and again from these parents. And the thing is, you think about it, and I haven't looked at the demographic numbers, but it seems like a lot of young people are caught in this net.
Absolutely.
And this is the future of our country that's being destroyed here.
Yep. So actually, I'm now connected with a guy. He's a software engineer that made a bunch of money, and he was working on healthcare software and saw all these numbers. And he got so upset about it, he decided he was going to do something about it. He's one of these guys with a good heart. And so he created a company called the Fentanyl Test. And he has created the best test for fentanyl. It's a dipstick test. So you can do urine, but you can also wipe it on whatever the substance is and put in a little bit of water and put this dipstick in and tell right away whether or not you got fentanyl. It's like within a couple of minutes. And it has a sensitivity of a nanogram. The competing one that they've all been using, the cops and the pathologists, et cetera, it has a sensitivity of 200 nanograms, which to translate that, 200 nanograms is a lethal dose. So that the test that all the government is using right now and paying big money for is basically just allowing them to do a feet up, feet down test. If you've got that level, you're already dead.
Right, exactly.
So it's totally useless for any kind of a screening purpose. Now, I am told that in the prisons that fentanyl is being flown in by drone because it's so light, they can use these little tiny mini drones and get it in across the prison walls. So a lot of the convicts are using it. And the reason they're using it is because they don't test for fentanyl. They test for a lot of other things, but it's too expensive to run the fentanyl test. And so the prison system isn't testing for fentanyl. And so they're all doing fentanyl. Oh, wow. So that is the bona fide user community. But fentanyl is something, as I said, well over 300 a day deaths. And why, we don't know the number because what it is doing is apparently killing off the homeless population at an amazing rate. And the homeless never get autopsies when they die. Right. So we don't actually know what's going on there. But fentanyl is one thing that Bobby can take a crack at, and he could do it in a number of ways. And getting behind this test is one of them. And the test is cleared, and it's all on the up and up and in the square with the FDA. So another big one is the whole issue of obesity. Obesity is what drives a lot of cardiovascular disease, really diabetes, of course. Obesity is the one ring that rules them all in health, frankly.
Right.
And we are absolutely in the grip of an epidemic of obesity.
70% obese?
Yeah. And a lot of that is driven by highly processed foods. And within that domain of highly processed foods, it's foods that use seed oils. So one thing he can do there is to, there's a potential labeling issue. I'm about to write an essay about all of this because it's really challenging from a libertarian standpoint. You don't want the government being even more of a nanny state,
right?
And yet you don't want poison in our food,
right?
So we have to find some happy medium there. I like to say, as I did at CPAC, if somebody wishes to eat a lot of McDonald's hamburgers and drink Coca-Cola, it's their right to do so.
Exactly.
Right?
Even if he is the president of the United States. We get
You said it, not me.
I know.
My wife told me I couldn't say that name when I gave that example. So you get the point.
Yes.
But obesity is a big one. Diet is a big one. One of the ones that I would like to see Congress move on that they could do very easily is to prohibit the use of glyphosate. That's Roundup for those who are
right, exactly
on the lexicon. The use of glyphosate as a desiccant. Okay, now what's that, Bill? You ever heard about that?
Oh no, I've heard of glyphosate, but not as a decicent.
Okay, so here's the backstory. This has been going on for about 10 years now. Virtually all of our grains, corn, wheat, and soy, are contaminated with glyphosate. Why, you ask me? Well, thank you for asking, Bill.
Yes.
The answer is it's a desiccant. What the heck does that mean? Here's the situation that the modern farmer faces. And remember, there are no more small farms. They are gone. Except
these are corporate farms.
The Amish and the Mennonites. Yeah. So you're running this, 1,000+ acre operation, and you're growing corn and beans because, in the Midwest, that's kind of the way it is. You rotate those two crops. You're growing corn and beans, and you need to harvest them. But the combine harvester that you need for your wheat or your corn or your oats or your soybeans or whatever runs into the millions. So what you going to do? You're going to go even more deeply in debt to John Deere, or what's your alternative? What you do is you sign up with a operation that just does harvesting. So there are, they're kind of like gypsies almost. These people that drive around and they have a harvester and they'll come through and harvest your field, and that's how they pay off the debt. And so they have to be on schedule, and they'll move through your farm, and then they'll move through your neighbor's farm, and then and everybody has got to be on schedule. Well, how are you going to schedule the drying out of your crop so it's all uniformly dried? The answer is you spray it with Roundup. You spray it with Roundup right before it's harvested, so that then it dies, and the grain or the soybeans all die at the same time. They all dry at the same time. And then you can handle the scheduling with the combine harvester coming through that you've got on contract. And so you can appreciate that all this feeds up to big ag and big finance, because that's what drives everything in this world, particularly agriculture these days. And just like the chicken farmer these days is essentially an indentured servant of Tyson's food, the farmer is also an indentured servant of Wall Street and investment funds and whatever. And so they don't have any choice. They have to do this. And so this has only been going on for about a decade. So there's still memory of the old days. Personally, I think the idea that, and I haven't heard anybody in the Gubbies talking about this, but this is a place that the Small Business Administration and the USDA and HHS could all find common ground and find some way to capitalize at very modest rates because of the public good.
Mhm.
Smaller harvesters that can handle smaller groups of farms so that they can have flexibility about when they harvest, and
Right.
then forbid the use of these desiccants.
Exactly.
Because what's the link between what I was just saying and desiccants and Roundup? Well, there's a ton of data, and we've covered this in our Substack about glyphosate and glyphosate exposure, and particularly glyphosate exposure during pregnancy. And they've used animal models, etc. But basically, two things are linked to glyphosate exposure during pregnancy to the fetus. Okay, one of them is obesity. The other one, autism.
Autism. Yeah, exactly. Wow. We're talking with Dr. Robert Malone about making America healthy again. And it starts with the consent of the governed. The onus is really on us. We've subordinated our brains to the government, said, okay, hey, we trust you to take care of us. And now we're getting fat. We're dealing with carcinogens, and cancer continues to increase. 70% of the country is obese, and it's going all in the wrong direction.
Bill,
And
another thing that I know is on the table right now in HHS and being actively worked on is reworking the food pyramid.
yes,
That thing is a hot mess. It reflects lobbying over decades, and it doesn't really have any connection to the science.
right.
The actual data about
what should the pyramid look like, Robert?
I think it needs to be a lot more heavy on protein, a lot less heavy on carbs, particularly sugar. The emphasis on veg, that's good. There's a lot of ups there, but we do need to have protein in our diet. And I think we need to emphasize meat a lot more than we have currently. There's a lot of upside with meat, particularly beef. And I stand as a testimony to that. I switched from a vegetarian diet almost 2 years ago at the insistence of my doctor, Brooke Miller,
Right.
who lives locally. He's a primary care doc. He also happens to be a Black Angus rancher. He drew my blood.
Only
ran
for
my
full
tests.
disclosure, right? For full disclosure, we got to say he's Black Angus.
But he's like 7th generation Angus breeder here in Virginia. He could step onto the set of Yellowstone and you wouldn't blink an eye.
Oh wow!
So he's the real deal, except he's a doc also. And he drew my bloods, and my inflammatory markers are out of control. And he said, Robert,
as a vegetarian, your markers are out of control. Amazing.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And because modern, if you're living a busy lifestyle and you're trying to eat vegetarian, you end up eating a lot of processed foods. They happen to be soy-based, but they're still processed foods, and they still got all those contaminants. So he said, Robert, you got to change your diet or it's going to kill you. And I did. I listened to him and switched over to a carnivore diet, very heavy on beef. And I've dropped 50 pounds.
Wow. That's amazing. So what was that like for you? The first taste of beef in all those years of being a vegetarian? What was that like?
Well, kind of like fake meat, only better.
Good answer. I love that. That's great. Fake meat, but only better. I love that. Well, okay. So the pyramid itself needs to be altered.
Yeah,
we're going to get away.
It's being done right now.
Yeah. And then we're going to get away from these seed oil based
seed oils. And that may have to be handled initially at the education level that Bobby has a bully pulpit.
Yes.
And he is an excellent communicator, and he walks the walk. I mean, I wrote in a Substack the other day where I was talking about one of his favorite supplements, methylene blue.
Methylene blue,
So he uses methylene blue, and it actually, at the proper dose, has all kinds of upsides. It boosts your mitochondrial function. The mitochondria is kind of a little power plant in each of our cells. And that's another long story. What is a mitochondria
Right.
and where to get there? But
Yeah.
in any case, it boosts the efficiency and activity of your mitochondria, so you have more energy. This includes cognition, overall energy state, but it's got to be at the right dose. And my comment about Bobby as kind of an advocate and user of this material, which is not FDA authorized, is that we now have an HHS secretary that is both a bodybuilder and a biohacker.
You look at him. You look at him doing. He's there where in I say Santa Monica, but at Muscle Beach, and doing his headstand, lifting weights and everything like that. I mean, his body. I mean, it's like, whoa. I mean, yeah, you want to listen to this guy, right? As opposed to listening to somebody who's 50, 80 pounds overweight.
Or the former assistant secretary of HHS, what was her name? Rachel.
Rachel Levine. Yeah.
Levine.
Yeah. She was confused out the door. So, I mean, and we're going to listen to her, right?
Not much of a role model
no,
for
I don't think so.
Healthy living.
Yeah.
So when I think of a president, I'm of a certain age as you are. When I think of a prior president that was this enthusiastic about health, the one that comes to mind is John F. Kennedy.
Right away. Exactly. Remember, he got everybody exercising.
Yep. And he considered it basically a national defense issue.
Yeah. Yeah. And why wouldn't we now, right? And I think with Pete Hegseth in with the military right now, Dr. Malone, I mean, he's out there working out with the guys, even in the cold. I mean, he's wearing shorts, a couple of guys wearing shorts, everybody else in long pants. I mean, he's roughing it up, but
he's the real deal too.
He is.
We got a bunch of non-pretenders.
Yeah.
And we've been swimming in fakes, frankly, for the last 4 years. And
a lot of posers, we would say. Yes.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's refreshing.
Well, and as you say, Bobby Kennedy has the pulpit right now, which is on rent from Donald Trump, no doubt. And so this makes this all viable. And I think we have, and I've been saying this with our audience for quite a while, Dr. Malone, is that we have a small window of opportunity in which to do something rather grand. But it's going to require we the people, because this is a government of we the people. And so we need to get involved. And I think that we're eager to do this because, I don't talk to anybody who says, hey, I hope I die when I'm 20. It's like the old Yogi Berra statement, right? He said, if I knew I was going to live this long, I'd have taken better care of myself. Yeah. And I think that's the attitude of most Americans, is that we don't want somebody else to do it for us. We can take responsibility, but we just need to have the right information instead of just trusting, big pharma and all these other agricultural groups that are thinking about profit over the health of American citizens.
Amen. We're on the same page. And with that decentralized bottom-up approach comes responsibility, personal responsibility, taking personal responsibility for your health. If you don't want the nanny state in your face, then cowboy up and take personal responsibility, lose that weight, make those sacrifices, don't eat that crap food. I mourn the fact that I love Italian food, but pasta has just had to go out the window. And that's one of my biggest sacrifices on the diet side.
Yeah. See, for me, being Hispanic is flour tortillas. And
yeah. Well, at least the flour tortillas. So make sure if you're going to do flour tortillas, you get the ones with lard.
Yes.
As opposed to the hydrogenated vegetable oil
exactly.
that the big chains will sell you.
You see, that was in the old days. See, my mother, oh my goodness. Oh, wow. You just brought me back. I mean, stacks of tortillas, but it was all with Crisco, lard, and there was this special flour that came from Mexico that is no longer in existence. They got rid of that. But
Bill, I was once when I was much younger, family went down to Baja.
Okay.
And to what was it? Bahia de California. I forget which bay it was.
Mhm.
But as we were heading out, there was a beehive oven, and it was dusty beside the road. Beehive oven,
Yeah.
old lady working it, and we stopped and got some tortillas. I am never going to have tortillas that good for the rest of my life. I've just given up. Never going to happen.
I know. Well, maybe in heaven. Maybe in heaven we get to heaven. I keep thinking, my mom and all the other Mexican ladies they'll have flour tortillas for us and tamales.
There we go.
That's it. I mean,
I think you and I have got to find a good Mexican food joint. They're hard to find here in Virginia. Everything comes out of a can.
Yes, I know. Is that at but like you said, getting back to the processed foods and the education of America. And I think right now, Dr. Malone, and when I'm talking to people say, hey, I'm going to talk with Robert Malone today. And they were really excited to hear about that. And that is that I think the idea of awareness has increased. It's like all of a sudden somebody turned the light on and people going, oh, that's right. I am fat. Oh, that's right. I've been eating all these processed foods. The red dyes, all the different dyes that Bobby talked about. I've been consuming them all these years. I'm lucky to be alive.
Yeah. So the bully pulpit. If we all take responsibility, we can help Bobby achieve his goal. That's the truth of it.
Which is for us. His goal is our goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And, look, it's not a political thing. This is bipartisan. Doesn't matter if you have an R or D. It's just everybody wants to live healthy. We don't want to be a liability, to our kids and our family members.
And have some pride as an American, whatever your place on the spectrum. When I travel back from Europe or Europeans travel into American airports, they are stunned.
Oh, yeah.
By looking at people walking around. And I don't want to fat shame people, but hey, let's get on the program. I did it. I dropped 50. I'm way more healthy. My wife feeds me all kinds of supplements morning and night. Mm-hmm. And I've got more energy than I had 10 years ago. Certainly more energy than I had right before COVID. And when I got COVID in February of 2020, I could hardly do farm chores anymore. I could hardly walk up the hill. I was in sad shape. And then they convinced me that all I needed to cure my long COVID was to get another jab and more of that spike protein, and it would kick my immune system into response. Stupid me. Plus, I had to get a jab in order to travel internationally. I had all kinds of heart complications, neurologic complications, POTS syndrome, restless leg syndrome, et cetera, et cetera. I started taking nattokinase. That might have helped. But the thing that really helped me recover from all of that was change in the diet and dropping the pounds.
Wow. I'm sure that's going to be encouraging because we have people who are reporting, as we said early on, the issue of
vaccination syndrome. Yeah,
exactly. Exactly. And so here it is, I didn't get vaccinated. All right. And it bothers me even this day when I go in and, they want to do if I go to the doctor's office and one of the questions they ask, have you been vaccinated? And why do you want to know?
And by the way, Bill, you know how you answer that question?
Oh,
you say yes. You don't have to say which vaccine.
Okay.
I'm sure at some point in your life. And the same thing if you run into the customs guy when you're going through the airport lines, have you been vaccinated? Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah, no, that's a good. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're exactly right. Because the thing is, I get concerned about is like, I go in for surgery last year and have a hip replacement, and one of the questions they ask, and I go no, and I go, well, I'm a sleeper. They're going to say, hey, let's give him a little bonus here. You didn't get vaccinated, so we're going to give him one free of charge.
Yeah,
well, he's out, right?
It's maybe it's a little duplicitous, but it's adaptive in this environment.
I love it.
Just say, I've been vaccinated. Which vaccine? Well, I took a flu vaccine once.
Right. Exactly. And I got the flu. My mother used to always yell at me, honey, you got to get the flu shot. And I go, why? Every time I do, I get the flu. So I stopped doing that. I don't get the flu as often, I got it this time. Lucky me. But that's okay. But anyway, I was starting to tell you, when I got COVID, I just monitor, because Dr. Fauci said, oh, your immune system can only handle it for maybe a couple of months and that sort of thing, right? So I monitored. I monitored my T cells to see how it was holding up. And for now, 3 years, my markers are as strong as ever. Thank you very much, my daughter-in-law, who gave me COVID, that has made me immune from that. So I'm thankful.
Good job.
Yeah. So, we all did things for, in certain people, and I feel for them in the military. I'm glad that some of them are getting brought back with back pay and everything. I think that's the right thing to do, right?
Yeah. A lot of them are so pissed off they won't even touch it DOD anymore.
Yeah, I don't blame some of them. I mean, here they were in some cases. I spoke with a Marine Corps major. He's maybe 18 months from retirement, out the door, loses everything. But he just said, I could not do it. So I'm hoping that he, he's able to get some reinstatement or something, early retirement, give him a bonus. I mean, 18 and a half years, he serves the country. And because he doesn't take the jab, they kick him out and he loses his retirement.
Yeah, that should, it sounds like under Trump's policies, that should be corrected.
I think so. I think some of these things will be. Look, we got about 9 minutes left, and I promised that we would talk about your book. Let's talk about PsyWar. Tell our audience about it.
So, as I was saying, now that the USAID Doge documents have dropped, and we've learned that, the quip is if it's too dirty for the CIA, they give it to the USAID. All the dirty tricks that have been going on and their manipulation of media globally, what has gone down with that and the Twitter files, the Facebook files, and the disclosure since then has really validated the thesis of the book, which is the government has been our government. And by the way, the British government against the British people, and the Canadian government against the Canadian people, and the Australian government against and New Zealand. All of these governments that are in the Five Eyes Alliance in particular have deployed military-grade psychological warfare technology on their own citizens. And this has become normalized. They call it fifth-generation warfare. The suite of technologies was developed for the color revolutions, Arab Spring, etc., for regime change, quote unquote. Ostensibly bloodless regime change, meaning we don't have to send troops there. We just have to send bits and teach people how to use Twitter and Facebook and let the magic of the internet do its thing, all carefully manipulated, of course.
Exactly.
With the information manipulated. But that tech was developed for that purpose, and also to counter the Taliban and Al-Qaeda. And now, at the behest of, among others, Obama, with that Hoover Institute speech where he said that censorship is necessary to preserve democracy. And what we've seen with USAID, they have actively deployed this against their own citizens in the context of COVID, but it turns out they're doing it for a lot of things. And the COVID logic was that, none of us are safe until everybody's been vaccinated. The product is safe and effective, and we're not going to tell you if it isn't, because that would cause vaccine hesitancy. And it was the President Biden.
And they don't have any liability anyway, right? They're protected.
Right.
So,
yeah. Well, we'll see about that in terms of, so the government extended indemnification essentially through some kind of hook and crook strategies in terms of how they contracted the likes of Pfizer. But on the table is a discussion of whether or not these bureaucrats that push this and push the censorship are potentially going to be able to be held personally liable. So PsyWar is a book that comes in many ways, out of our own experience. It follows on our prior book, Lies My Government Told Me and the Better Future Coming. And like with Lies, we had serialized through Substack a series of essays focusing on fifth generation warfare, psychological warfare, and what was going on in social media as we were observing it, and what was going on with corporate media, what my wife likes to call dead media now.
Right.
And even more dead when you see the numbers coming out of MSNBC and CNN.
Tell your wife I'm going to steal that from her.
Dead media.
I like that. Yes, exactly.
So you can look at her essay today about Joy Reid.
Yes, that's right. Joy is still more. So is The View going to be? Did they finally decide on The View?
I don't know about The View. I'm all for rearranging that one too.
Yeah, because supposedly they got 34 lawsuits, and the stockholders are saying, "Get it out of here. We're done. We can't afford it anymore." We'll see.
Well, their viewership numbers are frankly 1/20th of what I get on a monthly basis from Substack and from podcasts like this.
Right.
So, and I can guarantee I don't have a $10+ million monthly budget.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, I get that.
So something's not working there. And if I was one of the shareholders, I would be jumping up and down and screaming and tearing out my hair.
Exactly.
So what is the truth of it is that the whole system has been corrupted soup to nuts in corporate media. Long ago, I talked about the Trusted News Initiative. And in fact, the website Wikispooks credits me with the person that kind of smoked that out. Trusted News Initiative, something launched by BBC initially to resist Russian propaganda. And then before the outbreak in 2019, it was rejiggered to also focus on vaccine disinformation and anti-vaxxers and suppressing their voices. So the book kind of walks you through both historically, the history of propaganda, going back to Edward Bernays, the United States government's use of propaganda and psychological warfare against civilians, starting with the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and carries forward to the future and talks about, in more advanced topics, things like psychological bioterrorism, which is what we saw with COVID and what is now being deployed with bird flu, and for instance, surveillance capitalism, the business model that drives Silicon Valley profits, that involves, without your permission, scooping up all data they can about you to build what they call behavioral futures, which is a computational model of who you are, what you think, what you believe, what your interests are, what you're going to buy, and then sells all that. I assert that functionally what they're doing, because it's theft, is they're stealing part of your soul and then reselling it.
And the thing is, it's almost as bad as what's happening in China. I mean, it's
they love the China model. That's where all this is going. They love the China model.
Yes.
And so the book kind of is intended to educate. Think along the thesis, you could almost say, maybe not the perfect analogy, it's a vaccine for your mind.
Yeah. No.
To help you to see what's being done in this world in which they seek to control all information, and they seek to shape and control your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions, your desires. That's the goal here, is completely controlling that. And if you think it through, two things come out of that. They're kind of not so nice. One is because literally the entire information landscape is being manipulated. You can't easily tell who's real and who's false, who's genuine, who's your friend, who's your enemy. All of that becomes much more difficult in fifth generation war and psychological warfare landscape. And have no mistake, you are, whether or not you consider yourself a victim, you are a recipient of psychological warfare coming at you from a variety of sources, not the least of which is your government. And so you can't really tell who's friend and foe, what's real and what's false. And furthermore, you can't really be confident that the things you are thinking are your own thoughts or they've been planted in you.
Exactly.
Furthermore, you have a government that feels that it's acceptable.
Yeah, that's the thing that's
manipulate your mind and try to control your mind. And that is just completely opposed. It's diametrically opposed. It's anathema. It is inconsistent with our ability to make reasoned choices about governance. It's inconsistent with the sovereignty and autonomy of individuals as voters, as citizens.
Well, and as you say, it's all part of the New World Order. I mean, and we are forewarned. You and your wife co-authored the book. Congratulations. It really is a gift to America, what you've given us in this book, PsyWar. The book available at all the usual places, right, Dr. Malone?
Well spoken. And you can also buy it directly from the publisher, Skyhorse Publishing. And by the way, if you are an audiobook person, unfortunately, you can only get the audiobook from Amazon, or fortunately, depending on where you are in the political spectrum about Jeff Bezos. But in any case, I sat at this very chair for hours and hours and hours in the middle of the night because my neighbors make too much noise on the road that goes down there with their motorbikes.
Right.
Recording that darn thing between 10 p.m. and 4 in the morning so that you don't have to read the book if you don't feel like it. You can get the audio book and listen to it with your earbuds while you're vacuuming or sitting in traffic or whatever it is that you do.
In Dr. Malone's own voice, ladies and gentlemen, just for you. What a gift. Dr. Malone, thank you so much. The Substack, real quick, as we wrap things up. How do they connect with your Substack?
It's easy to find malone.news. It used to be called Who is Robert Malone on Substack. You can find it through both of those routes. And thank you so much for that, Bill. It's the Substack. You don't make any money on books these days. Sorry to say. I know I've disillusioned you. But what pays for the horse feed on this little farm is Substack and our small subset of subscribers. We've got something like 400,000 that subscribe to it, but of those, only about 13,500 pay a monthly fee, but it's enough.
Okay. Well, again, our gratitude for coming on. We appreciate the time, Dr. Malone. You take care. All right.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me on.
Take care. Hey, our thanks to, as I say, Dr. Robert Malone. Gosh, I'll tell you what resource, and the fact that he's on our side. I like that he's on our side, watching out for us, and he's been an advocate of good health, and of course, he tells his own story about how he lost 50 pounds, going from being a vegan and listening to his doctor's advice. And, enjoying, a good steak every once in a while. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, our thanks to you. Thank you so much for being with us and sharing a part of your day with us. May God bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. And may you realize his peace, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. God bless. Take care.